Hey there, all my YouTube Rotation 411 Astrology subscribers. So today I want to talk about Saturn square or opposition Venus. I feel like I've mentioned this in a few of the other red flag videos, but I haven't made a video particularly about it. I will reference you to those videos as well. It's going to be very brief. Usually when we have Saturn, so we're talking about Synastry here for those of you that are just joining us, and please excuse the old puppy in there, but so when we're dealing with Saturn, it's a generational outer planet. It moves very slow. Pluto takes the longest, I think, because it's the furthest out. It takes like 10 years to go through a sign, so I think Saturn takes, don't quote me on this, like 5 or 6 years. No, it's faster than that. It's like 2 or 3, because we have our Saturn return when we're 29, so it takes about 29, 30 years to go through all 12 signs. So yeah, it's about 2.5 years in each sign. And so people born, if you're dating people that are all born, like lately, I'm finally in the age range I want to be in. Like, they're finally showing interest in me. I think it's because their Pluto's in Libra and I'm in Aries, that opposition. But so like if you're dating people all around the same age, you're going to be dating the same Saturns. So that's how it's going to be affecting your Venus. Now, your Venus isn't going to touch Saturn a lot of the time, but every once in a while, it's going to align with someone else's Venus within a 5-degree orb, and it's going to cause a significant experience, right? So if I'm dating someone born in 1981 and their Saturn is like hitting my Venus, but then I date someone earlier in 1981, their Saturn might be out of that 5-degree orb. I might not feel it as much because it's such an outer planet. So with that being said, usually the Saturn person is older person in this relationship. Saturn is the father of time. He's great for glue. So if, say, it was like Saturn trine Venus, this can be a really nice contact to keep two people together long term. You have to add moon compatibility into that. Even if they don't have moon compatibility, but they have good Saturn, like a trine Venus or even trine Mars can be great allies. Then a couple could last actually like 10 years, or even with the North Node, maybe, I don't know. I got to think about Rahu and that, but even without moon compatibility, if they've got really strong Saturn, because Saturn is obligations, rules, authority, government, public image, PR, things like that. It's the 10th house. It's the natural ruler of Capricorn. So it's very kind of uptight, restrictive, but he can also be a benefactor. Even though he's usually, I think, more maleficent, they call it, he can be a benefactor like Jupiter, but he like rewards you for your hard work, where Jupiter is just going to bring in all that love and support and luck and even slight ability to manipulate things in your favor. Jupiter can pull the strings. Saturn's going to make you do the hard work first. So when we're dealing with Venus, on the other hand, since we're talking about Saturn opposition or square Venus, Venus is the planet of love, beauty, luxury, your voice, because it's the ruler of the second house, partnerships, because it's the ruler of the 7th house in Libra. So it's harmony and peace in our lives and balance, right? And beauty and love. And it's the way that we love. Our moon is very much how we're going to actually live day to day with someone, with our shifting moods in the household and the private life, which is very important for love. But Venus is how we're going to express our love, what our love language is. So you usually want your Venus to at least be in sextiling signs, if not trine, but just so you have that comfortability and that ability to understand each other. So now going back to how Saturn and Venus affect each other when they're coming into a hard aspect. And this can even be Saturn conjunct Venus or Saturn on the moon conjunct. I know for me, I have natally Saturn square Venus and I have Saturn opposition moon. And I was reading this list. This is sort of a side note of all the, people you shouldn't date based on their own natal astrological aspects. And I'll come clean. One was moon in the 12th, which is me. Just because we're just we don't understand our emotions enough, or we don't express them at the right times, I guess, because we're living in another world half the time. And then the second one was Venus square Saturn, so when someone has this natally like me, that might be why I found myself in this sort of situation with another Venus square Saturn, which we're going to get into and how that plays out. But it's almost like a comfortability, but then Saturn's still way too restrictive, so it's even more overwhelming when you have it natally and then meet someone with it. It's like they're reinforcing the good parts, but they're also like overbearing with the bad parts, because squares also bring, like I said, good things, like rewards for learning the challenges and the obstacles. But whether they can actually work and not break a relationship is what we're discussing with Synastry. So you're still going to learn things through these experiences with these relationships. But anyways, so going back to when Saturn is squaring Venus or in opposition, usually this 9 times out of 10, the Saturn person is the older person. And so what happens is Venus might come to Saturn in the beginning with this square opposition because they are making contact. So they're going to communicate these planets. And Saturn takes a while to kick in and really show his restrictiveness. It takes about 4 or 5 years. So when Venus comes in, at first, Venus is going to be like, oh, here's all my dreams, you know, with love, with life, with beauty. Here's what I want to create. You know, here's how I plan to make money. And Saturn's like, oh, yes, this sounds very good. You're very, you know, Venus, I really like your style. I think, you know, you can really go places. I think you can do all the things you want. I'm here to support your creative endeavors, as if it was a trine, right, or something like that. And because this energy is still going to be very light in the beginning, because like I said, Saturn takes time to kick in. That's why couples that last longer than 4 or 5 years have nice Saturn, because they have that obligation to each other, those duties that keep them involved in the relationship. Sort of like having 6th house stuff going on. It's not the most romantic place to have planets, but it definitely can keep 2 people in it day in and day out, and you know, teamwork and things like that. So this is really nice at first, but after a while, and just from my own experience of this, and it's also in the, I mention it, and I'll tag this video when I get a chance, the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard Celebrity Synastry video. I talk about it, how she was saying like, oh, telling people, like her assistant or someone had overheard her, this is a rumor, you know, it's all hearsay, but like, oh, I'm dating this old guy, and da, 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 da. And it was like superstar Johnny Depp, right? So the thing about it is, because it's her Venus contacting his Saturn, he's the older one, right? It kind of takes, Saturn kind of takes all the beauty and mesmerizement out of it. Now, if it was like Neptune square Saturn, Neptune square Venus, which I actually need to do a video on, but I'm still collecting a little data. I just did Mercury square Neptune, but if it's Venus square Neptune instead of Saturn, this is where the person might be on a pedestal where you're like, oh my God, he's a freaking, you know, movie star. Or like right now I'm kind of hanging out with someone I have Venus square Neptune with, and he actually has a lot of the same contacts with me, or not in this tight of an orb, but similar stuff to my twin flame. So I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying this so much. Like, but I might be like, I'm overlooking some things. Actually, well, now I'm going into my personal life, but there's certain like standards I have, or preferences. They're preferences, so they're not deal breakers, and I'm definitely overlooking that. Like, just throwing it out there, like I don't usually date men with children. He has children, it doesn't bother me. Venus square Neptune, right? So this person's on a pedestal, but when you have Venus square Saturn, Venus kind of feels like Saturn's like stuffy and old, and it's kind of like, this old guy's here again, or gal, you know. And so even if it's like a male and female couple, let's say, and the female is a Saturn and older, the guy, I actually experienced this too with sort of a collaborator of mine. We kind of liked each other and tried to date. He's super cute, I'm cute. We're very complementary looking together, and we have a lot of the same interests and stuff. But my Saturn, I'm like, I think he's Aquarius, and I feel like he's the same year as me, but I think I am slightly older. I think he's like, I'm April, and I think he's the following January. So we're not even a year apart, but I'm slightly older, and my Saturn is hitting his Venus opposition or square, and he, like, you could tell we liked each other, but it was just like, his Venus, right? Like I don't want to say too much about his personal life, but like he lives sort of like a nomad, I guess. Like he lives on a boat, and so he's just very like go with the flow, hippie, free, but he like rents out boats and stuff. And so he was like going, I don't know if he's going through financial hardship, but the way it appeared to me, like his Venus, like he was selling off his cars and his stuff, you know. So I was like, oh man, you know, let's make a plan, let me help you out. Saturn, right, kicked in, my Saturn in a hard aspect to his Venus, like, you know, I like you, like me. Like, it wasn't that I was trying to rush a relationship. I just thought, because we have other things in common too, we could build a working relationship. This was my Saturn kicking in, and to him being a little younger and hitting his Venus, his money planet, it feels restrictive. Like I'm almost taking away his ideas or his more lighter contacts in his own chart with his Venus or his Neptune or his dreams. It's like Saturn's like, here's a practical way we can implement fixing your problems, you know. And especially when it's a female, like it's kind of like a female's Mars hitting a man's Venus, like it's just a little too much. And he's like, you know. And so I do see married couples that have this. In the description in Cafe Astrology, it says long-term couples can have this. But then Jules Mayberry, one of my favorites, I can't remember what her channel is called, she says, you know, that the Sun opposition Venus can really work, but she doesn't think that long-term Saturn, especially square Saturn square Venus, or even opposition, I'm going to say, she doesn't feel like it's very conducive. It just becomes too restrictive, especially over time. So after 5 or 6 years, especially the Venus person, just going to feel really weighed down. And so I'll give you one more real life example. I have a friend, and I've mentioned this I think I mentioned this when I was kind of going on a rant about Saturn opposition Venus in the Mercury square Neptune video. And I'll put the link below if you want to check your aspects and see if you have these things. And you can also refer to like my Twin Flame Soulmate series, you know, if you're looking for the more positive, rewarding ones instead of harping on the negatives. I'm just sort of going through the red flags at the moment. It was where I met him, and he would always like talk my ear off, and he's a Leo, so I'm Aries, so our suns are trine, so we get along harmoniously personality wise. But it always felt just a little bit like draining, like he just didn't have any boundaries or know when to stop. So I'd sit there and chat with him, this local place I used to hang out when I lived a little further out than where I live now. And we had been neighbors for like a year or two, and then I had moved a little further out than that, and then came back around, and then we met. And so I was like, oh, I lived on the street right behind yours, blah blah blah. So we talk, and then he helped me move into my apartment now. The guy I was actually dating at the time, it was kind of like I thought I was going to move 20 miles away and then that would be over kind of thing, because he didn't really help me and it wasn't going anywhere, but we were having fun hanging out. Of course, long story short with that was a very Neptunian relationship. I moved over here, and then he, you know, was always over here 20 miles away, more than when I lived less than a mile away, but that's another story. So this guy helped me move, and then I was kind of like, you know, I was grateful for that. But even Saturn kicked in, right? Like, here, I'll help you implement your plan, we'll get it done. I mean, it was a really strenuous move. I had to deep clean everything I owned, and I've moved like 1,000 miles and brought a lot of shit with me. So this was like only 20 miles, but it was just like a deep clean of everything, and he helped me through the whole thing, you know. Endured. Saturn has endurance like that, and is reliable. But the thing is by the time the day was over, like the 24 hours or something, I felt he was just so overbearing and stuffy, and I felt so bogged down by him that I couldn't even stand to be around him for another moment. Like, not even, I feel bad if he ever watches this, but I've told him, I'm very upfront with him. He has a Pisces moon. I'm moon in the 12th house. He's very forgiving, I hope, because anyway, so long story short, this is my Saturn opposition Venus that I've experienced the most. So then I move over here, and this is like my acting teacher said I should just do a day in the life. So I'll just tell you all my stories, right? Then I didn't want anything to do with him for like 5 or 6 years. But then right before quarantine hit, I was having a really rough time, and somehow we reconnected. Like, he was always hitting me up for years, and I was always just kind of brushing him off. And then we started hanging out, and at first, for like a moment, it was like maybe slightly like, oh, like let's touch each other, and then it was just like this weird disconnect, and he blamed me for it, but it was like always this guilt trip that I was getting, and then it just turns my Venus off. Like, Venus is like, how am I gonna feel loving energy when you're like guilting me about not being loving? And it was just this weird disconnect, and then I could talk to him about anything, right? But I call him up and I'd be like, oh, here's my plan. He's like, that's great, but just somehow he'd always find a way to like turn it. Even though he was positive and uplifting and helped me when I was really down, when I was starting to kind of, you know, get a little higher vibration and start to try to break through that, he would always kind of try to keep me down, not like abusive, but just like kind of little kicks and things that are really subtle, you know, to knock you down a peg, but not in a malicious way. It's just Saturn, like, you know, it's kind of like one of my law of attraction tapes. It's like, you know, Esther Hicks is like mocking how people, sorry, I gotta, getting addicted to Starbucks again. It's how she's like mocking people, where she's like, you know, you tell them your great plans, like you're gonna do this and that, and they're like, you need to be wary. I know someone else who things were going very, very well for them, and then they, you know, so like, you know, sometimes people, like if you're talking negative, they'll be like, don't talk bad, you know, about yourself and stuff. But then when you start getting really positive, that scares them too, because they're worried, like, I don't know, you're gonna vibrate away from them, like they're not gonna be able to keep up with your vibration. And this is very Saturn opposition Venus or square Venus. Like you two might be able to really come up together. You usually might find that even though there's an age gap, that you're very much on the same level in life when it comes to your successes, your accomplishments. You're very aligned. Even like with Amber and Johnny, like he's much more successful than her, but she's also more successful, you know, than a lot of, even though she's, a lot of people are like, who is she even? She's more established in her own career than most actresses in Hollywood. I mean, if we're just looking at percentages. So you know, she's able to hold her own in that way somewhat. But over time, Saturn can just really kind of start to consume Venus almost, where it's like, wait, you know, don't shine too bright, Venus. You know, the sun is bright, but Venus is shiny things, you know, very feminine energy. I know a girl told me, you know, men love shiny things, just wear shiny things, right? So that's very Venusian, like Lady Luck, like the shimmering gold. And Saturn can kind of, Saturn's not really an eclipse type of energy, but he can almost like shadow her. It's almost like he puts this cloak over her. It reminds me almost of, oh, there's one astrology video I love, and I don't know if it's a Saturn Venus video, but it's about the story where, I think it's actually why Saturn and, no, it's where he takes her like underground half the year, Persephone, I think, and she lives underground half the year in darkness or something like that. I don't know if that was a Saturn Venus reference, but it's kind of like that. Like Saturn can just start to just have too tight of a grip on Venus. And like I said, it's not really malicious energy, so couples can work with this, but over time it's going to become heavier and heavier. And then depending on, like I said, for me, I have Venus square Saturn in my natal chart, so for me at first it was comfortable. It was like, oh, you agree with me on these things. And I think, okay, so square is basically like all the this is advanced astrology, so if you're not following, you know, you can skip ahead to the end. I'm going to be done in like 2 minutes. But a square is when, so we have cardinal, mutable, and fixed signs, right? And we have each of those in each element, right? Because each element is 4, air, earth, water, and fire. So 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, and if you're not following, that's okay. But so when we have a square, it's dealing with the same element, or no, the same mode, which would be cardinal, mutable, or water. And so the polarities, okay, I'm probably losing some of you here, but when we have air, okay, the air cardinal sign is Aries, and the air cardinal sign is Libra, and the fire cardinal sign is Aries, and they're opposites. And then the earth cardinal sign is Capricorn, and the water cardinal sign is Cancer. So we're dealing with all 4 cardinal signs. The ones that are in the same polarity, which would be masculine or positive, which would be air and fire, Aries and Libra, they're going to be in opposition to each other. Same with Capricorn and Cancer in the feminine polarity or the negative polarity. So when we're dealing with a square, that means that somebody's planet is in the other polarity of yours. So if your Saturn is in Aries or Libra and someone's Venus is in Capricorn or Cancer, they're squaring yours. So what I was dealing with my, I actually might be in opposition, but anyways, so the point is I was going to illustrate where like my Venus is in Pisces, so my Saturn is in Sagittarius or Capricorn or something. It's squaring that. I don't know. But anyways, natally. So I might have to cut that off at the end, you guys. I'm sorry. So if somebody's, say, coming from that other opposite energy squaring you, it could be almost like a harmonious balance, but it also could be, anyways, in the beginning, if you have this square natally, you're going to feel more comfortable with this energy. Kind of like if you have Pluto stuff going on, which was another one. Never date people with too much Pluto in the 8th house because they're whores, and I never mind. All right. I was just going back to the beginning there. So I'm going to wrap this up because I'm getting a little lost, but I think that yeah, if you have it natally, you're gonna be a little more comfortable with it at first, but then I think over time it's gonna weigh on you even more, because now you're beating yourself up, they're beating you up, when you're not beating yourself up and they're uplifting you, and it's just always gonna be like, I don't know. And it really can put a huge damper on physical attraction, you know? When you're just weighed down with duties and obligations, like think of having a newborn child or something, or, you know, just working a lot. You don't have the time to really indulge in luxury like Venus, and, you know, Venus rules Taurus, luxury and beauty and things like that, because you're just gonna go, and this person is gonna start to feel like that, you know, like to you, like they're gonna feel like a burden, Saturn, to you, and you're gonna feel like maybe you could enjoy life more without them, and you might start to want to kind of get rid of them or put a block up with them. And this could even be before the relationship becomes physical. I think the reason for me with that person that it never became physical is because there was a 5-year gap and then Saturn kicked in. But if you're dating that person the first 5 years, there might be something physical. But it's kind of one of those ones where you might have been really attracted to them at first, and then after a while, you just like, it's just like that person that like keeps tapping or something, or like just annoying you, and you just want to get away from them. So you don't, like, how are you going to be physical when you just want to get away from them kind of energy? So, you know, I really painted a beautiful picture here. Now, of course, for not all of you couples, especially if you are in a long-term relationship making this work, because you have other enjoyable aspects that balance this out, so you're not feeling this so much of the time, you're still going to feel it subtly, you know, but like every relationship has its, you know, friction to keep you together. And a Saturn contact as Venus, you might feel like, yeah, okay, maybe I could do so much more and be so much more creative without this monkey on my back, my mate. But then at the same time, you know, they really keep me grounded, because Saturn, you know, Capricorn's grounding energy, and I'm really able to focus when I'm with them. Say if you have like a Venus in Pisces like me, you know, you might get a little too floaty sometimes, and, you know, a Saturn person might bring you back down to earth, so you can actually utilize your imagination and, you know, put it into something tangible, because Saturn is dealing with tangible things, and actually so is Venus, because it, you know, so, but it also is ideas, so they're helping you bring all of that into fruition. So it's not always a bad thing, but it can be quite heavy energy at times. So I'm sending you lots, and so if you're in something knees deep and you don't want out of it and you're enjoying yourself, just recognize this energy when it comes up. And if you're Venus, maybe don't indulge your ideas as much until they're a little bit more fruitful. You know, maybe you two work really well together, but maybe some things you can keep to yourself, and vice versa. If you're Saturn and you feel like sometimes you're like, gosh, I'm a little hard on my Venus person, you know, they come to me and then I kind of pick things apart, and I'm a little too critical too quickly, and I kind of feel a little guilt about that, but I don't know, you know, that's just the way it works. Maybe lay off and let them just bounce their ideas off of you, and let them have those for themselves. And then, you know, if they come to you for some sort of advice, give it to them, but don't give them unsolicited advice. So I'm sending you lots of love, blessings, and light, and I will see you in the next video. I think I might do a Mercury retrograde video really quick, because Mercury's about to go retrograde. Then I have to run and grab a package that I missed, because I didn't know they were going to deliver today. And then I might do a Mars square video tonight, but I also have to get to the birthday videos. I'm just like really wanting to kick out some of these red flag aspects. So anyways, I'm sending you lots of love, blessings, and light.